welcome to another Lawn Fawn video. Today we are so excited to be introducing our brand new stamp set, A Mole Out of Flowers, with its coordinating dies and coordinating coloring stencils. We're also going to take a look at the brand new All the Garden Hats with its coordinating dies and coordinating coloring stencils. We'll also look at All the Grasses with its dies and coloring stencils, and also at our brand new Build-A-Wheelbarrow die. So let's go ahead and start checking these all out. First, we're going to take a look at the A Mole Out of Flowers stamp set, which has this super cute mole pushing a wheelbarrow and then has these fun things that you can stamp into the wheelbarrow. So we have a cute little pile of flowers, we have this adorable little baby mole, and also just a little pile of dirt. We also have a cute little heart that you can stamp around your scene, and then some fun little mini phrases. And these are so much fun. So we have I love you mom, and also I love you mum. We also have I love you grandma. So you can do everything that you need for Mother's Day. Here we have Happy Mother's Day, which is awesome. And then we also have yay. And then we also have hello springtime. And then this set has some larger phrases. So we have holy moly, and then we have it's spring. So holy moly, it's spring, or holy moly, it's Mother's Day. And I love that you can mix and match the sentiments and create different kinds of cards depending on what you add into the wheelbarrow. Now next up, we're going to be stamping out our All the Grasses stamp set, and this is a part of our All the series. And so this little mini set has all the different grasses in different styles, different heights, different orientations, so that you have the perfect little grass for adding on to your scenes. You can see that this set has so many different styles, and you can also layer them and do all sorts of cool things with them too. And then the third stamp set we're going to take a look at is our All the Garden Hats. And so here you can see we have these cute little garden hats in different sizes so that you can layer them on most of our critters. So we have small ones and large ones, and these look so cute. They bring your favorite critters right into springtime. And I love that there's some plain hats and also some hats with the cute little flowers too. The set also has a little mini phrase here which says, "Oh, happy day," and then also sending you sunshine, and I love this sentiment so much. So now that we've gone ahead and stamped out all of these new sets, we're going to start adding color to these adorable images. And I'm going to be using my Copic markers here, but you could use any alcohol markers, color pencils, watercolor, whatever your favorite way to color is. We also have coloring stencils for these guys, and we'll show you those in just a little bit. Now, I love this set because it can be used for 3 different things, or really anything in your imagination. But you could use the flowers for springtime cards, the little baby mole for Mother's Day cards, and then the pile of dirt for like general thinking of you or I really dig you type cards. This set is also a perfect companion to our A Mole Out of Love stamp set. You can layer all of the different moles together to create the most adorable little scenes, and we'll show you that in just a little bit on this video. So here I've added some nice bright turquoise to the wheelbarrow. The wheelbarrow is really fun because it's a great place to add a nice pop of color. And then I'm going to do some different colors onto these adorable little flowers here. And then we're going to be coloring in the dirt. And I always like using E20 markers for the dirt. You'll also see that I added a little bit of a warm gray marker on to that wheelbarrow there, and it gave it kind of like a little bit of a dirty feel, which I thought looked really, really cool. So now that we've added some color to these adorable moles, we're going to work on the All the Grasses set. And so here I'm going to start off by using my markers, and then in a little bit we're going to use the coloring stencils. And I really like bringing in a really light kind of like lime green, almost yellow into grasses. It makes them feel really bright and makes it feel like almost like the sun shining on them. Now here we're going to take out the coloring stencils for this set, and this is a set of 2 coloring stencils, and all you need to do is line it up with your stamped image and just brush on a little bit of ink. Here I'm using some freshly cut grass ink, of course, and you'll see that I'm just inking on a little bit with my brush, and I can just add a little bit darker to one side and a little bit lighter to the other. Depending on how much ink you get on the brush or how hard you push, you can get a lighter color of grass or a darker color all with the same ink pad, which I think is really, really cool. I never changed ink colors here. I just added a little bit more or a little bit less, which is just awesome. And here is a look at all of those grasses either colored in with markers or with the coloring stencils. And now we're going to do the same thing with the All the Garden Hats. So I'm going to start off with some really light yellows here, and I'm just adding some fun springy colors, just kind of whatever markers were on my desk. I thought a purple hat might be cute. It's really fun to kind of play around with them. I like using yellows or browns a lot because then it kind of reminds me of those kind of like straw garden hats, which I think is so pretty. Here I'm going to add a light brown, which is a really nice look, and then here I'm going to use some E40s for a different look on this hat. And I just think they're just adorable with all of these bright colors. Now here we're going to switch into the coloring stencils, and this is a set of 3 coloring stencils, and we always make our coloring stencils the same size of the stamp set so that they're really easy to store together. And here you can see that I'm picking up a little bit of ink, and I'm making sure to add a little bit more ink towards the outside and a little bit less towards the middle to give it a fun shaded look. And here I'm going to bring in some blue, and look how pretty that is. I'm just using whatever is left on my brushes, and I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. We're doing some different shades of blue here, and then we can add our cute little flower there and then the flower center. And now you can see the differences between all these hats, and I think they look absolutely adorable. Now the A Mole Lot of Flowers has coloring stencils as well, and this is a set of 2, and you'll see that these are sized as the same size as the stamp set. It's our medium size of stamp set. And here I'm adding on some dough ink, and I'm making sure it's darker towards one side and lighter towards the other. And you can see how pretty this is going to look on the mole. Isn't that gorgeous? Now we can work our way down the stencil, and all of our coloring stencils have etched guidelines that make it really easy to line up with your stamped images. In this case, I did a really light brown, some sugar cookie, and then a light pink over top to get the look of the mole's hands and feet. I'm going to add some merman ink onto this wheelbarrow, and again I'm going darker towards the outsides and lighter towards the middle, and then I can work my way down the stencil. And there's something so fun about this. I love kind of working my way down the stencil. It's very relaxing to me. And so we're going to do all these different details onto the wheelbarrow. Now we've got to add some color to the wheel, and so I'm going to use some hippo ink, which is a darker gray instead of the manatee I was using before, and then we'll just add a little bit there to the center of the wheel, and look how beautiful that is. I just love the look of the coloring stencils. Now these are the coordinating dies, which you can take and line up with your stamped images. We'll hold them in place with some low tack tape, we'll run it through the die cut machine, and then we'll have perfectly cut out images every time. Here you can see when the die cuts out the little things that go inside the wheelbarrow, it cuts out a little bit extra on the bottom so that it's really easy to adhere into the wheelbarrow, and I love that. It's so much fun to tuck these little images into the wheelbarrow, and here I have my helper Miles helping me out. You can add the flowers, the little baby mole, which is his favorite, or just the pile of dirt too. You could also layer the different things, or you could even use those little flowers to be like fun little decoration in the background. You could tuck them into some die cut grass. So there's so many fun ways to play around with it. Here you can see with just the plain pile of dirt, and I just love layering everything together, and I love that you can use this mole with the original moles from A Mole Lot of Love too. Next up, we have the coordinating dies for all the garden hats, and you can line these up with your stamped images, hold it in place with some low tack tape, run it through the die cut machine, and you'll have these adorable little hats. And what I like about these hats is that they fit so many critters of different sizes, and they bring them right into the spring season. I think it is absolutely adorable and just makes me smile. I love that they fit the capybara or other favorite critters from previous sets. They fit the butterflies so well. They're really cute on the critters with the Easter eggs too. Even that little mouse. I mean, there's so many ways to mix and match them. Miles was having a blast, and he thought it would be cute to even add a little hat onto the baby mole in the wheelbarrow. Isn't that adorable? I just love it. I can't wait to see what cute critters you guys are going to add these garden hats onto. And speaking of all the sets, here we have the coordinating dies for all the grasses, which you can line up with your stamped images, hold in place with some low tack tape, run through the die cut machine, and you'll have perfectly cut out images every time. You can layer the grasses together to get cool dimension, or add them in with your favorite critters to create a really cute scene like we've done here. I've been using these grasses nonstop because they're that perfect little filler when you just need a little extra something to make your scene perfect. So now that we've played along with all of these cute stamp sets, we're going to take a look at our Build-A-Wheelbarrow. This set, of course, has the wheelbarrow and then decorations for it with the cute little lid and also a handle. It has fun little greenery that you can put inside, adorable little flowers in the backer for the flowers, and a little pot too, and a wheel for the wheelbarrow, of course. So here you're going to see how we can layer everything together. So you can layer that detail piece on top, and then layer the edge of that kind of bucket of the wheelbarrow, which is so cute. There's also a fun little handle, and then of course we have the wheel. And this wheelbarrow is really fun fun because you can combine it with the die cut things that are included in the set with some of your other favorite dies like our stitched veggies, and Shari will show you that in a little bit. Or of course you could add your favorite stamped images right into the wheelbarrow, which is perfect for spring. I also love that this wheelbarrow would be really cute for fall cards too. So here you can see we're layering the little flowers. So you have that base piece, and then you can layer the flower with the opening to add the little flower centers. Those base pieces are also really cute used on their own, and we'll show you that in a bit too. You can also tuck the greenery or this little plant right into the pot, which is just adorable and really fun for kind of setting the scene around the wheelbarrow. And then you can add little drops of glue onto those little circles onto these stems and then layer the flowers on top of those. And I love these because they're really cute for putting in the wheelbarrow, but they would also be cute for just making general spring cards and creating a fun flower field. And here you can see how adorable all of those flowers and greenery are tucked into the wheelbarrow. Isn't that just so sweet? And here we wanted to show you a card that we made where we layered some pretty pattern paper in the background and even added that cute little mole from a mole lot of flowers into the wheelbarrow. And I think this is so much fun. Now next up, Shari is going to create a super cute mole card. So take it away, Shari.
So for this card, I'm taking the new A Mole Lot of Flowers, and I have also cut out some grasses and a little garden hat from all the grasses and all the garden hats. I also have some really big blossoms here from the Big Blossoms backdrop in Landscape because it has that flower that you can cut just by itself. Now I've already colored and cut out my images. I do need to stamp the little sentiment in the speech bubble. Now this speech bubble is from all the speech bubbles and I stamped it in some gray ink. So I used some River Rock ink. And for this card, I'm stamping the little sentiment that says, I love you, Grandma. I like that this stamp set has a couple options that you can use for a little speech bubble like this. I'm also going to stamp the sentiment from this set that says, Holy moly, it's Mother's Day. And I have a piece of Blissful Blossoms paper cut with the stitch rounded rectangle stackable. And this is going to be my ground. I am going to trim out the top with a border die, but what I want to do is stamp my sentiment right along the bottom first. Then I can grab the border die I'm going to use, and today I'm using the wavy stitch border. I think this is a fun alternative to the grassy border, especially if you're going to be covering it up a lot, but it's just more fun than a straight line. And now I have my ground, and that's going to layer over my other stitched rounded rectangle. I cut two of the flowers from the Big Blossom backdrop out of sunflower cardstock, and I'm adding a little bit of ink blending. I've just put these on my grip mat to hold them in place since they're kind of delicate die cuts. And I'm using some fake tan ink to just add some extra color from the center of the flower out towards the end of the petals. So the end of my petals stay yellow and I get that nice orange in the middle. While these are kind of still stuck to my grip mat, I thought I would take advantage and go ahead and add the center of the flowers. These are cut from some chocolate bar cardstock. And now I have some cute little black-eyed Susan flowers to go on my stems. Now the stem that is individual in the Big Blossoms background only curves one direction, so all I did was I cut the other one from the back side of the cardstock so I could flip it over and have a flower that curves in both directions. And then I'm just adding these blooms to the top of these stems. So now I want to put together some of my images. I love that we have little things to fill the wheelbarrow in the A Mole Lot of Flowers stamp set. So I've put the little baby mole in there and the garden hat on the grandma mole. Now for my background, I have a piece of pattern paper cut to 4¼ by 5½. This is from the Falling Leaves collection, but I really love this kind of peachy um, lattice work, and I'm covering the whole card base with that, so that's going to be my background. Then I have a much smaller stitch rounded rectangle cut from Spiffy Speckles for my sky, and then of course there's my grass or ground that I made earlier with the sentiment. Then I can take my big blossoms and tuck them behind the ground. And what I really love about this card is these big, huge blooms are so big with that cute little mole, and I love that they go outside of that rectangle. I just think that's a really fun look. Now for this one that's going to go kind of over here to the left, I did need to trim off that stem a little bit because it is very long, and I wanted this one to be a little shorter. But I just think this is really fun to kind of extend those flowers out past the frame of this panel. Now I can pop on my grandma and baby mole with some foam squares. I'm also adding that cute little sentiment. And I wanted to stamp some hearts. So this set has a cute little outline heart. It's perfect for stamping in some ink. So I'm using some guava ink for pink hearts. And I'm just stamping those around instead of using my normal die cut hearts. Now I've put foam tape all over the back of this panel, and I'll put that whole panel onto my card base right in the center of that pattern paper, and it makes the most beautiful frame. Then of course we need some glitter, so I'm adding my stickles to those hearts I stamped, into the hat, to the flowers, and a little bit on that wheelbarrow. And then I forgot I had these grasses that I had cut, so I need to go back in and add my little grasses, which is great that we have this new All the Grasses stamp set, and you can just add grasses to everything. So I have two that I'm putting on each side, and I think that really kind of adds to the scene. And then I love that we have short ones and tall ones so we can layer them together. And I'm going to go back and add a little glitter to my grass too. And then here is my finished Mother's Day card. I think these new moles are so cute, especially paired with those big, beautiful blossoms.
Oh my goodness, Shari, this card is so cute, and I love that it says I love you, Grandma. It's so sweet. Now here I wanted to make a Build-A-Wheelbarrow card, and I'm going to do my favorite technique, which is to die cut all the pieces out of white cardstock and add color with my markers. So here I am using some blue markers, and I'm adding a little bit of darker marker towards the outside and lighter towards the center. And whenever I'm doing this coloring onto pieces, I always use markers a little bit lighter than I would think. So if I think I'm going to use these certain markers, I go just a little bit lighter, and it always turns out how I want it to turn out. So we added some gray onto the base of the wheelbarrow, and then some browns onto the wheel, and then also onto the handle. And I think this is looking so pretty. This wheelbarrow is fun, cut out of colors of cardstock, pattern papers. You could also ink blend onto it or do some fun markering like this. So I added some liquid glue onto the base to add kind of like the bucket of the wheelbarrow, and then here is like the edge of it, and then we can add our little handle right on here. Now you can put the wheel either in front or behind this here. On the first card we put it behind it, and now this time I'm gonna put it in front just like this. And now we have this super cute wheelbarrow that is ready for some things to fill it with. And so now I'm gonna use the greenery that's included in the Build-A-Wheelbarrow die, and I'm gonna start out with some colors of cardstock here. So I'm going to use some of the new Minty Fresh cardstock to die cut the greenery, and then some of the peach cardstock for the flowers. And then I'm just going to come in with my markers here and just blend over these little flower pieces, still leaving some of the cardstock here. And so there you can see what that looks like. I use some YG markers for that, and then those are the colors that I use for the wheelbarrow. Those are for these cute little leaves here. And so you'll see I'm just kind of scribbling, like there's no right or wrong way to do it. I just use my darker one, and then I blended it out with my lightest. And then I used a little bit of a darker just to add some lines on the leaves. And I think this looks really pretty. And by starting off with the color of cardstock, it can make it a little bit easier to color because you're not coloring in all of the pieces. For the flowers, I'm using an R01 marker, and then I'm blending it out with an R000, whatever my lightest one I could find is. So I'm going to do just a little bit of an edge of the dark marker, and then I just blend the edge with the lighter marker. It starts to look really dark at first, but once the ink soaks into the paper, it looks really, really awesome. For the flower centers, I am using some orange, and right now I'm recreating a card by Elena, so thank you so much, Elena. And I love how she used this really pretty orange to be the centers of the flower. So I'm just going to add some orange marker to the base pieces, and then we can layer the ones with the openings over top. So I'm just going to add a little bit of liquid glue, and then I can layer that right over top. And for this card, we're using some of the ones with the flower centers, but we're also using the flower backer pieces as little flowers too. And I like that because it's going to give us two different styles of flowers for our cards. And so I'm just adding some liquid glue onto those little circles on the stems, and then I'm layering those different styles of flowers on there. And there's something about that mint and the green and the peach and the orange. Isn't that so pretty? It's just like fresh and springy, and I just love it. Then the next thing that I'm going to do is add some white gel pen details, and I just love doing that. It always makes everything feel so special. So I'm just adding little lines onto the leaves, and then I'm just going to add little curves onto the flowers, and then some curves onto the wheelbarrow. And if I don't know how to add my white gel pen lines, I just look at the design team. They're amazing at it, and I go, okay, how should I add little lines? And I get ideas from them, and that helps me learn. And so I'm feeling more and more confident because I just keep copying what they do, and now I'm kind of learning learning what to do myself. And here you can see how pretty this is. There's something about the markering that makes it feel just so pretty and kind of vintage, and you can easily layer in all of these pieces. Now, I thought it might be fun to bring in our Build-A-Bunny and also bring in the pot that's included in this set. In Elena's card, she used Build-A-Bunny in the wheelbarrow, and this wheelbarrow is the perfect size for both our Build-A-Bunny and our Build-A-Fox. And so he's going to be holding on to this little pot. So here I'm just adding my markers onto the pot. I decided to make it just a little bit darker, so I brought in a darker marker, and I'm just going to blend that out just like that. And now it's time for the Build-A-Bunny. So I'm going to be die cutting these pieces out of white cardstock again, and we're going to be adding some markers to these. I really like using E40s on this bunny. It looks super cute. And so my darkest one is E43. And then I'm going to just do a little bit of the darkest one, a little bit of the medium, and it's really going to be the lightest ones that are all over the bunny. And that's what's going to make it look kind of like fuzzy. It's just the darkness is just a little bit on the outside of the edges. Same thing here with the belly. And we're not going to be able to see his feet, so I'm just doing a little bit onto the body, and then of course onto the arms as well, with a little bit of the dark, a little bit of the medium, and then the two lightest are the majority of the die cut pieces. We're also going to be adding some detail onto the ears here, some pink. And then for this piece here, that's the backer that goes for the eyes. We're just going to add some black cardstock onto that. And then for the little circle that goes behind the nose, we're just going to add a brown onto that. So it's like a little brown nose on the bunny. And now we can start to use our liquid glue and layer some liquid glue all behind the head and then layer the little ears. So we have the ears there, and then we have the eyes, and then the nose. And I love that they all fit into each other like a little puzzle. It makes it really easy to add the pieces to the back of the bunny and then add the details to his face, which looks so super cute. Next, we can add that little belly area to the center of the body and then add the bunny's head right on top. There's a little embossed line on the body that shows you exactly where to line up the head. And then we can add these cute little arms onto the bunny too. Then I decided to add some rosy cheeks onto the bunny. There's something about it that looks so super cute. And then we're going to be adding the plant into that pot. And I decided to trim off one of the leaves so that I could tuck the plant in there a little bit. And there's a little cut line on the pot, so it's really easy to tuck the plant right inside. And then I'm going to have the bunny hold it. So I'll just add that other arm on top. And isn't that so super cute? And then I went ahead and added some white gel pen lines onto the bunny too, so that it's going to match all the flowers in the wheelbarrow that we did earlier. Now it's time to add the bunny in the wheelbarrow, and he was a little bit too tall, so we're just going to trim off his legs, and then we can add some adhesive to the back of the wheelbarrow and start to tuck everything inside. So I'm going to add the bunny first and then layer all of the greenery in front of and behind the bunny. And I think this is such a cute look. It's just adorable. Oh my gosh, like look at this. How could you not smile? There's a little bunny in a wheelbarrow. It's just so much fun. Now, next up, we are going to be making this into a Mother's Day card. So I'm going to be taking out the Scripty Mom, and I cut it from that same peach cardstock that we used for the flowers, and I'm using that same R01 marker to just add some details around the letters. Again, just so that everything coordinates. I always take a really light marker afterwards and just go over the edge, and that helps blend it into the cardstock. And then we can add our white gel pen details around, just little lines and dots, and you can see how pretty that looks. This would be really cute on just like a square shaped card, just like this for Mother's Day. But I decided to do something a little different. So we're going to use this largest of the stitch rectangles, which is 5.5 by 4.25, and we're going to die cut some 12 by 12 Blissful Blossoms paper. And then we're going to be using one of these reversed scalloped rectangle dies to create kind of like a window. So we're going to use that second one, that second largest one. And we're just going to line it up in the center. We can hold it in place with some low tack tape. We'll run it through the die cut machine, and now we have this cute little scalloped window that can help frame our bunny. Now for the sky in the background, we're going to be using some Gleeful Gradients paper, and I love this paper because it has that gorgeous gradient. So it's almost like an ink blended background all done for you. And so we're just going to trim this down to be 5.5, 4.25 so that it's going to fit behind this window, and it looks so cute. Next up, we're going to be adding some foam squares all to the back of this frame to give it a nice pop so that it feels a little bit like a shadow box. And then we can add some foam squares to the back of our wheelbarrow bunny here and layer him into the window. Next, we're going to die cut the Scripty Mom outline to give a base to that Scripty Mom that we kind of colored the edges of earlier. So there's the base, and then we're going to take the piece that we added the marker and white gel pen to. We're going to add some liquid glue and layer that onto the base. And you can see how that really makes it pop, and that little bit of marker that we added to it makes it feel almost three-dimensional. Then we can add some foam squares onto this and then layer that right on the bottom for a super cute Mother's Day card. Next up, we are going to take a standard size card base that's 5.5 by 4.25. We can add some adhesive to that and layer this whole card on top. Now, this card could be done just like this. This is so cute, but I really loved how Elena added these adorable little birds, and they come from our center picture window heart add-on. And we have a lot of sets that have like a teeny little bird in them, and it's just adorable. And so again, I've die cut these from some white cardstock, and we're just going to add some color. So here I have a light brown. I'm just going to add to their bellies, and then I'm going to use the same blue markers that we use for the wheelbarrow, and we're going to add some color to these birds. And so I'm going to add the darkest, then the medium, then the light, and then the very lightest to blend it out into the belly. And we can do the same thing for the wings and then repeat the same thing on the other bird. And I think this looks so super cute on there. And you can see like the imperfections is what makes it look really pretty. I have areas where it gets a little light or it's not quite blended, and I think that was just really cute on these birds and on any of these die cut pieces when you marker them. Here I have some rosy cheeks on them, and then I'm just taking a black marker and scribbling onto some cardstock, and I'm just going to use my scissors to cut some little squares so I can layer it behind these birds to fill in the eye. So I'm just going to add some adhesive and then just go right on top of that little piece. You could use some black cardstock too, but I had my markers and my white cardstock out, so I just went for that. And so now that we have these cute little birds, we can layer on their wings, and of course we'll add some white gel pen details, and then we can add some foam squares on them and layer them into the card. And then last but not least, we're going to use some Nuvo drops just to add a cute little detail in the background. Elena always does this in her cards, and I think it's just so cute. It adds a fun little texture, and they're really three-dimensional, which is really pretty. So now this card is all done, and look at that. Isn't that so cute? I love how you can add so many things into the wheelbarrow. And next up, Shari is going to show us how to add some veggies into the wheelbarrow, and it is so super cute. So take it away, Shari.
For my card today, I'm using the new Build-A-Wheelbarrow die set. I also have this bow. This is from the Build-A-Barrel apple die set, which is right there. That's the barrel. And then I also have some stitched root veggies that I've cut out here. So we are going to fill our wheelbarrow full of big giant vegetables. So I am going to put my vegetables onto my grip mat. I'm spreading them out so that I can do a little ink blending on each of these to give them a little bit of shadow. So first I'm going to start with that radish up there. This is cut from some raspberry cardstock, so it's kind of a pinky cardstock. And I'm using chili pepper ink to add a dark shadow on one side. For my carrot, I have pumpkin cardstock, and I'm using pumpkin spice ink to add a little bit of darkness. Now this one's pretty close in color, but it is going to give us a subtle shadow. And then for my turnip over here, I cut this from some vanilla malt cardstock, and I am adding some juice box ink to the top of it so we get that two-toned veggie just like we see at the supermarket. Now for each of these, I've cut a top out of a green from the Textured Canvas Green cardstock pack. So each of them is a different color of green, and I'm just using my Pick Up Pokey tool to put that down in that little slit at the top and kind of open it up a little bit so that when I add my stems at the top, they can slide right in there. So I've just added a little dot of glue right above that little slit, and I'm just sliding the green tops down into the top of the veggies. And I was using my tweezers to just kind of hold it while that glue sets for a minute. And now I can move on to the wheelbarrow itself. So for the body of the wheelbarrow, I cut the whole thing out of narwhal cardstock, and then I am layering over a piece of mermaid cardstock for the actual barrow part that we put the veggies in. And for the trim at the top, I used peacock. So we have two teals for the body of the wheelbarrow. Then I have some black cardstock for the handle and for the wheel. Now I actually remembered that I am remaking a card I made before, and I used sparkle cardstock for these. So you're going to see me add that later once I remember that I did that. For the little bow, it cuts 3 pieces, so we have the knot, the loops of the bow, and the tails, and I'm just stacking them on top of each other, and these are cut from some ballet slipper cardstock. I'm adding my bow to my wheelbarrow because basically I'm making a giant bouquet of veggies, and this is the vessel that's going to hold them. So now to fill my wheelbarrow with my vegetables, I'm just using a little bit of liquid glue to do this, starting with the turnip here. And I'm making sure I turn these in such a way to where they look like they're leaning up against the inside of our wheelbarrow. You can really see it when I add the carrot here because I'm going to flip it over and you can see I'm following that edge of the wheelbarrow inside there. And then, of course, we're going to add the little radish at the top to make it look like a giant pile of giant veggies. And I just think that this is really cute and adorable. I'm also going to add a little heart to my wheelbarrow because this is a fancy wheelbarrow because we're doing some fancy gardening and we have some giant vegetables, right? Then I pulled out a white pen and I'm adding some white details to all the veggies and the wheelbarrow. I'm also going to add some to the greenery and then I'm going to make my bow polka dot. So I'm going to just go in here and just start dotting away on this pink bow, making some little polka dots, and I just think this adds some really fun detail. You could also cut this out of pattern paper if you wanted, but I just think it really adds some detail to this bow and makes it really stand out. And this is where I remembered that I used the black sparkle cardstock, so I'm just going to layer the black sparkle cardstock for the handle and the wheel right on top of the black licorice cardstock I used before. And I just think this adds some fun shimmer to those dark elements. So I'm going to set that aside and we're going to work on the background. So I have a piece of Blissful Blossoms 12 by 12 paper cut with the small stitch rectangle that's going to fit inside my lacy rectangle that's cut from the white there. I used that same die to cut the algae cardstock you see here, and I'm going to stamp my sentiment along the bottom first before I cut the top with the grassy border die. And I like to do this so that I make sure I cut my border at the top high enough to where I don't crowd the sentiment. So it's always good to stamp the sentiment first. And I'm using the sentiment that says "Sending You Sunshine" from the All the Garden Hats stamp set, and I love this sentiment. I love the fonts in it, and I think it's really cute with those giant veggies because clearly they got a lot of sunshine. So I've cut the top of that with the grassy border die. You can see that that's going to line up with my pattern paper. So I'm going to start by putting this craft piece of cardstock on the card base to make a craft card base. That's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Then I have my small stitch rectangle that will fit inside my white lacy stitch rectangle. And that's going to go right on top of that craft cardstock. And that craft cardstock will peek through those cute little lacy details. Then I can put my grass on the bottom and I'm actually going to put a piece of foam tape across the back so that it's popped up off that background a little bit. And you can just line that up right at the bottom. And then I added foam tape all over the back of my big beautiful veggie bouquet and I am going to pop that right onto the card as well. I will add a little bit of liquid glue down there on the wheel and the little rest for the wheelbarrow because those are going to be touching the grass. And I want to make sure they are glued down so they don't get caught on anything. And look how that fills the card. I just think it's so cute. Now, of course, we want some extra little hearts, so we're sending love around these veggies. The heart that's on the wheelbarrow is cut from raspberry cardstock, and these are guava. Of course, all these are using the Hearts and Stars skinny tag die. And then it's time for the glitter. So we're glittering all the hearts, the little edging on the wheelbarrow, and we're adding some magical glitter to the greenery of our veggies. And here is the finished card with that big, beautiful vegetable bouquet in the Build-A-Wheelbarrow, and I just think it turned out so cute. To create this card today, I'm using the new A Mole Lot of Flowers along with the A Mole Lot of Love stamp set. So I have all my cute little moles cut out. I also have some hats from All the Garden Hats and grasses from All the Grasses. Then I have some cute little birds from Backyard Bird Feeder and that line of tulips from Carrot About You. I just think those are really cute and fit perfectly on my card. So I've already colored and cut out all of my images with the coordinating dies. And today I'm using the Peekaboo backdrop die. So you can see there I've cut out the frame from some pink watercolor wishes paper. I also have a piece of spiffy speckles that I've cut to 4¼ by 5½, and I'm going to layer this onto my card base. This is going to be the sky in all of my little frames. So now I can just add that pink frame over top, and I'm using my liquid glue to do this because it is nice and thin. And this is going to give me 4 little frames for 4 little scenes. I also use that Peekaboo backdrop to cut some Blissful Blossoms paper. I have 1 square piece and 1 rectangular piece. I'm going to use these to make my ground in each of these little scenes. You don't really need to cut 4. You can get 2 square pieces and 2 rectangular pieces out of 1. So I'm using a simple stitch hillside for this square piece. Then for this rectangular piece, I have a stitched hillside that I'm just going to hold in place with some tape and run that through my die cut machine. Now I can take the 2 leftover pieces I have from the 2 that I cut, and I'm going to flip them over. And basically, I'm trimming these off, and the only reason I'm flipping them over is because this has sort of a directional pattern on it. If this was a watercolor wishes or a spiffy speckles, I would just use the flat side I already have, but I don't want these little petals to look like they're upside down and different from the ones on top. So I've just trimmed them back down to rectangles. The little square is going to remain a rectangle over there on the right, and this one I'm cutting with the stitched wavy border. And so now I have 4 little grounds to go in my little windows, and I'm just going to go ahead and pop those right into place. They fit in there perfectly because I used the die to cut the original shape out. So once I have all of those in place, I'm actually going to stamp my sentiment next, and I'm using the sentiment that says "Holy moly" right up here in the top of this square, and then the rest of my sentiment will say "It's spring," and I'm going to stamp that at the top of the other square. So now it's time to work on my images and all my cute little scenes. So first I'm putting the little pile of tulips in the wheelbarrow, and then this little mole needs a garden hat. I'm also going to add a garden hat to this one that is digging in the dirt. And I love that we have hats with or without flowers. For the hats, I'm using a very thin black pin and I'm adding some little hash marks. I think this always makes it look like a straw hat, and I just think it's a fun little detail to add. And then I've put foam squares all over the back of my mole with the wheelbarrow. I'm going to add foam squares to this guy that's digging in the dirt as well, and pop him right up there in that top right corner. And I actually forgot I wanted some little white gel pen details on these moles, so I'm just adding that before I get too far along, and then I can add them to my other moles before I glue them onto my card. So I have the little mole that's popping his head up out of the dirt. He's going to be up here on top of this little hill. And then this one that has his bum up in the air, he's up here at the top of the hill digging in the dirt. I also have some of the little elements from A Mole Lot of Love, like this little pile of dirt with the greenery coming out of it, and these make perfect little things to just kind of add around. I also have my cute little birds, and I thought it was really fun. I layered these in such a way that they kind of overlap the frames and kind of make these little scenes continue into each other. There's my little row of tulips, and this little bird is pecking at the ground around those tulips, and I just think that's really fun. I also have this little sprig up here, and then I have all my grasses, and I could have added even more grasses, I think, to this once I was done. I have my little worm too, and I'm giving him a little bit of a foam square so he's popped up and crossing over between those 2 little scenes. And then I'm just working on sprinkling my little grasses around. And now that all my images are on there, it's time to add a little bit of sparkles. So I'm adding glitter to the ribbons on the hats, all of the greenery, so all the plants and the grasses that are green, and this line of tulips here. And then here is my cute little spring card using all the moles from A Mole Lot of Flowers, A Mole Lot of Love, and lots of other fun images to make a really cute card.
This card is too cute, Shari. I love how you combine the moles from both sets to make such an adorable scene. And this wheelbarrow filled with the veggies just makes me smile. I think it is just so sweet, and I can imagine a bunny pushing the wheelbarrow. It's just adorable. And next up, we have some incredible cards by the design team, and this one by Yanea is so sweet. I love how she filled the wheelbarrow with the little baby mole and how she used the flowers to help set the scene. Next up, we have an adorable card by Grace, and she used both Build-A-Fox and Build-A-Bunny and those original Build-A-Bunny accessories as their clothes to layer them into the wheelbarrow. I mean, isn't this so sweet? I love how the bunny is just kind of hanging out in the wheelbarrow. It's adorable. This card here by Elise is so much fun. I love the scene she created and how she used the grasses all around the little mole with the wheelbarrow. And then this card by Maureen is so much fun. I love all the carrots with the wheelbarrow and the bunny. This card here by Audrey is just so sweet. I love how she used the coloring stencil for the grass to stencil grass into her scene. Isn't that beautiful? This card by Letitia is adorable, and I really love her bright colors in the blue wheelbarrow. It's so pretty. And then this card by Megan is so much fun. This scene is just adorable, and I love how she brought those veggies in from our Veggie Mice stamp set. This little wheelbarrow is so much fun. This is the one that we showed you at the beginning of the video, and I love how we added the little stamped mole in. And then this card here by Melissa is so pretty, and I love how she stenciled the butterfly background with the wheelbarrow. It looks amazing. This card here by Lynette is so much fun, and I love how she layered her grass all around to create the perfect spring card. And then this one here by Lynette is so pretty. The pinks and reds are gorgeous together. I can't wait to use a color palette just like this. So we cannot wait to see all of your mole cards, your wheelbarrow cards, and how you add grasses and garden hats to all of your favorite scenes. So make sure to share it with us. Thank you so much for watching today, and we hope you have an absolutely amazing day. Bye!